Hello my gorgeous makeup loving friends. This palette took forever and a day to get to me. It took me about 4 weeks between ordering it and actually receiving it, and then I went on a hiatus. But anyways, we're finally doing something on this. I'm not doing any swatches because this has been around long enough for you guys to know what it looks like, but I am doing a tutorial on this look and telling you what I think of this palette overall. So if you are interested in hearing my thoughts and seeing a tutorial, then fantastic. You clicked on the correct video. If not, keep it playing anyways. I need the views. But let's get on to the next part of the video. Is this a case of better late than never? Hard to tell. I'm taking this BH Cosmetics brush and I'm going into the shade Ruby because I really did want to try and get as many of the different tones in there and kind of test out the palette as much as possible. I think it's pretty obvious, like one of the things that this palette really significantly lacks is depth. Like there's no blacks, it's all very like mid-toned. It is very much made for people like me, i.e. super white. Yeah, I mean, not like we don't have a million options as it is. And then taking a Cash Beauty brush and going into cheeks. I will say that they've included like some good blendy outy shades. Yeah, that's right. Technical terms only, lads. Like it does blend with it pretty well. And I mean, the formula of Beauty Bay is darn good. You know, you can't go too far wrong with it. I will say cheeks almost overpowers Ruby a little bit, so you know, that is something to consider. I'm going back into Ruby again just to kind of give that little bit of extra depth. Nothing major though. And then I'm using this Blend Bunny B1 and I'm going into the shade Handkerchief. And this is quite bright actually, but it does mesh quite nicely. I'm just kind of putting that out towards here. Decent pigment on it for me. I don't know how it's going to operate on a darker skin tone. I suspect not that well. So kind of funny because I know they were trying to link this in with Bridgerton, and like Bridgerton is actually very inclusive in terms of like skin tones, etc. So a bit of a fail in that sense. And I'm taking the same brush again. I've gone through the colour switch and I'm going into Flush. And I think this is kind of where they've made a little bit of a boo-boo. This is too close to the other shade. And like, I know you need your blendy outy shades, but this is much too close and you could have kind of done without it, in my opinion anyway. And again, going back into Ruby just to like get that extra bit of depth. And I'm taking this blank canvas E10 and I'm going into the shade Confetti. Now what I'll say about these shimmers is that some of them you can pick up on the brush like this and you're going to get okay pigment, but in general they have this sort of a putty-like sort of a consistency and you're going to have to get in there with your finger. So if that weirds you out, I just say get yourself a spatula, but this is kind of what I'm wanting with this right now. It's just like a little wash of colour, like nothing major. And then I'm taking a Morphe M562 and I'm going into the shade Bellini. And this one actually has really nice pigment to it, so I'm bringing in that all the way kind of towards the arch of the brow, or at least that's the general thought. It has a decent amount of pigment on it. But again, if you really want to get the wabam of this, you need to use your silicone spatula or your finger. So I had quickly actually cut out a little bit of a shape there. So I'm taking a Cash Beauty brush and I'm going into the shade Corset. Now this is quite a pale tan colour because like again, look at how white my skin is and that's showing up just about on me. So, you know, if you have any melanin in your body at all, this may not be the palette for you, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shitty time really. Same brush again and I'm going into the shade Chandelier. I think what I like about the shimmers in a Beauty Bay palette is that I do have a tendency to use them as highlighters as well because they do tend to like work quite nicely in that respect. So I'm taking a Zoeva 238 and I'm going into the shade Lavender and I'm popping that right in there and up towards the crease. I have a cat who is very loudly grooming herself. Did it go over? Yeah, but who cares? It's just makeup. The pigment on this is actually very good. Like it's a light colour, but it's still showing up pretty darn well. Using the same brush again, I'm going into the shade Princess. I did put it through the colour switch. And I'm just kind of popping that in on the very inner corner. Now this is one of those ones that you can kind of see it doesn't turn up that well with a brush. So I don't personally love that, but I didn't want it to be like super obvious for this look either, because this is meant to be a springy Eastery look. That's my attempt anyway. And now another Zoeva 238, and I'm going into the shade Lilac. Now you can see this is a much warmer tone of a purple. Like the other shade was much more blue toned. Probably not as good pigment wise as the other. It's still pretty good. Like, I'm not gonna complain about it and be like grr arg. Now this is one of the shades that definitely doesn't seem to work at all with a brush, so I do have to go in with my gross hands, and I'm going into the shade Spark. I'm literally just popping it kind of in the center there. There isn't a massive amount of pigment on that. I wasn't wowed by it. And then I'm taking a Zoeva 238 and I'm going into the shade Glove. This is quite a nice deep dark purple, but I feel again like, I mean, this is the darkest shade really in the palette, and I could have done with a lot more depth, in my opinion anyways. And then just taking a blank canvas E10, totally dry, and just swishing back and forth around here just to kind of get them to mesh a little bit more. I will be doing more with the dark purple, FYI. And then I'm taking this Melt Meshla brush and I'm going into the shade Glove and also into the shade Mahogany. So I'm actually mixing the two of these on one brush. And that's because you see, you just don't get the depth with this palette. So I'm having to kind of make it up myself by mixing. And that does help a little bit with this one. So that's it, I'm going to clean this up. I am obviously using my Artitude Split It liner, and I'm going to pop on some gems, some lashes, all that sort of thing, and we're going to come back and I will tell you what I think of the palette. Okay, I finished everything up. I glued more things on. You know how Coco Chanel says like, oh, before you leave the house, take off one thing? I feel like this eye look was one of those things that I should have taken something off, but also I like gluing things to myself, so anyways, let's zoom you guys in so you can see what it is that I did to the face lid's eyes. Yes. Okay, so this is it. A lot of graphic liner work. It is pretty much doing the heavy lifting here. Lots of jewels. We're not going to focus on the fact that my glasses always leave indentations, or that I couldn't get the lashes to stick down correctly. I forgot to bring tweezers. But this is what it looks like. So what do I think of this palette overall? I mean, look. The Caucasity, this is like super pale. Like even for me, it's super pale. I did use quite a few of these. I have used this off camera a couple of times as well, so I can actually give you a fairly decent idea of what I think. I think of all of the colour stories that Beauty Bay has actually put forward so far, this is probably their weakest, you know. The formula is definitely good, you know, I have no problem with that. I think the one thing that kind of annoys me a little bit is like with the shimmers, sometimes they're totally fine with a brush and then sometimes you have to like use a silicone kind of sponge, but that's more like a trial and error type thing. That's me being really pernickety. Yeah, it's very difficult to do a very cohesive look without bringing something else in. There isn't that necessary depth. This is not very suitable for a lot of people. I know that this is currently even on sale as I'm filming for like, I think about €12 or whatever. You know, for €12, I kind of would say, yeah, do you know what, get it. Like, it's not bad if you have other palettes that you compare this with. But if you were looking for a standalone palette, no, it's not it. And I did look at this in terms of whether or not it was similar to Anastasia Beverly Hills original Norvina and then the various Norvinas that have come out 1 through 5. And there were some dupes of shades, but it definitely wasn't a dupe of any of the ones like completely. So what I will say is if you do have Anastasia Beverly Hills, the Norvina 1, if you have, or the original Norvina, if you've the Norvina Pro 1 and 4 and 5, you don't need this. You really don't, because there are some dupes of shades across those. This is not a necessary purchase. I think a lot of these could have been edited. Some of them, when they get on the lid, like these two look pretty darn similar, so it's a bit unnecessary. Same with these two. But all in all, it's not bad. It's not awful. I would probably give this maybe a 6.5 out of 10. The quality is not bad at all. It's just kind of poorly edited with a lot of the shades kind of coming quite close to each other and just not being the most cohesive or inclusive colour story that has ever come out of Beauty Bay. They've definitely done better. That is it. That is the end of the video. Do please like, comment and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell so you can see more, whatever it is that goes on over here. And do please share, because sharing is caring. Unless, of course, it's an STD, in which case, you know, wrap it up. Don't be gross. But that's it. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.